And welcome back, Wyoming Knuckleheads. I'm your host, Aaron Gray, and today we have a special guest, JT Grainger. He is the vice president of the Sheridan the Sheridan Pilots Association, and then also the CEO or owner of the Sheridan Pilots 307, which is we'll get into that, but they're kind of one and the same. You know, they do hand-in-hand things together. But JT, thanks for coming by today and sitting down and just talking with us.
Thanks, Aaron and team, and GoBeWYO. This is an honor and a privilege to be here with you today.
Awesome. Yeah, we were just talking about kind of how you born in Colorado, but then kind of most of your early childhood was in Saratoga, Wyoming. And, let's kind of jump back into that. So went to a boarding school. Your sister's a little younger than you, but what happened after boarding school? And then kind of walk us through, kind of give us that timeline to coming into Sheridan.
Yeah, so absolutely. So just to rewind a little bit, when I was 8th grade in Saratoga, I wasn't in trouble. I just got the opportunity to go to a college prep school, they call them, or a boarding school on the East Coast. It was co-ed, and it was about 350 kids. And I still maintain all those relationships that I had with all those friends in Saratoga in 8th grade. And I'd come back and spend time with them in the summer. So again, to kind of echo what you said, my sister followed in my steps kind of a couple years after. And once I graduated from Brooks, north of Boston in 2005, I applied to UW. I applied to University of Denver. Actually, Gonzaga I played to. They're in the national championship tonight. I got into that school. I didn't get into several others that I applied to, but ended up deciding to put myself out there and go to DU in Denver. I could have made the easy choice to come back to UW and kind of rejoin all my friends. Mm-hmm. And I decided to continue to put myself out there and take advantage of everything that I had been given, and started DU, went through 4 years of undergrad there. I spent a lot of times in the fall in Laramie to football games and had an absolute blast. My favorite band, Chancey Williams and the Younger Brothers, were on the stage of the Grizzly Rose my junior year, and I looked up and I saw Wyatt Springsteen, whose mom was my middle school music teacher, and I said, "Holy cow, Wyatt, what are you doing here?" And ended up being good friends with the band and kind of following them through the years, and loved Denver. What it was back then, it's definitely changed now, as you'll talk to a lot of people. I have one sister still there. But after I started working my junior year for an industrial supply company, part-time with class. And once I graduated, I went full-time there, and I worked in the warehouse. I worked on the counter. I applied to be a account manager in sales up in Gillette, actually, for the coal mines. I had a lot of friends that were in positions there. I was told I needed to get a little bit more experience instead of jumping out of the gate at age 21, 22. So I ended up, at the time, I had quite a bit of an overextended social life. I was kind of abusing alcohol a little bit too far, kind of going all out at the Rose and whatnot, and staying up late. Everyone's been through that phase. Yeah. And it took one time when some friends came down to me, falling over my feet and hitting my chin on the curb, to kind of wake up and realize that I've been given a lot. I need to make a lot of it. So I stopped drinking for 2 years and applied to MBA school at DU in 2011, and I was fortunate enough to pass the GMAT. I hired a Craigslist tutor down in Denver and got into DU again, to their business school, and I did that while working full-time. I did night classes on Monday, Wednesdays, and met a lot of really interesting people. Everything was group work except for financial classes. Sure. And earned my MBA in 2013, and stayed in Denver, and I ended up earning a role as a whole sales account manager responsible for a sales territory with the same industrial company. Mm-hmm. And I kind of oversaw all southern Denver, from Highlands Ranch over through Littleton to Centennial, Arapahoe Road, that whole kind of corridor in there. Had some really interesting customers, from U.S. Foods to Via West Data Centers to Comcast and whatnot, just kind of a wide array. I did that for 3 years. And I don't know how far you want me to go.
Keep going. This is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, just a lot of my friends after college had left Denver. Some of my best friends had gone to Minnesota, where they were from. Other friends had gotten key positions at different companies and moved out of Denver. And, in the back of my mind, I was still kind of I was in a relationship at the time that ended up being pretty toxic. And when that ended, one of my best friends in college, we ended up getting a roommate situation going by Washington Park in Denver, where she was a night nurse and I was working during the days. And she'd come back from work at the hospital and crack a beer and watch The Bachelor. And at the end of her shift, right as I was going to work in the daytime, and we had an absolute blast. We would. My sister from college, she went to University of Richmond, the same one who moved to Sheridan, Kristen. She moved to Denver, and then right then I was kind of hanging out with her friend group and with what friends I had left, and we had an absolute blast. It was so fun. And we'd go skiing and play in the parks and everything. I was trying to find my niche with work. I could always handle rejection and answer no in sales. Sales drives the world, really. And I did really well at the start, and then a lot of customers in my segment, if you will, either left their positions or there was turnover or companies went out of business, if you will. And ultimately my performance and my sales quotas suffered as a result, and I applied to a role in Salt Lake City as an operations manager, overseeing a shipping team at a branch in Salt Lake. And in 2016, I left Denver for Salt Lake, packed up all my stuff at my house, and headed further west, and got to Salt Lake, and I worked there for a year. I lived up at the top of Parley's Canyon, next to Park City in Jeremy Ranch, and drove down to Salt Lake every day. And I had a great team at that branch. We go play top golf together, and we do all these different activities outside of work. And I was still not feeling quite at home. Utah was beautiful, had a lot of great people there. Park City was amazing, the ski areas, the salt flats to the mountains. And,
Right.
One of my best friends was a 70-plus-year-old mountain man named Cactus Jack, who actually, kind of side fact, some scenes in Yellowstone were filmed there. All the Indian reservation scenes were filmed with all these sagebrush backdrops and whatnot. And I was in my 10th year with the same industrial company, and ultimately, I said, it's been 10 great years, and I left Grainger in that year, and in 2017, I started with Vail Resort Ski Company, and I do a lot of volunteer stuff outside of work. At this equine center called National Ability Center, I'd be a lead walker or side walker for people of all different abilities, and that was what I really enjoyed. And soon after I applied for Vail, I became a shipping and receiving manager for them at the Grand Summit Hotel there in Park City. And it was a huge cut to my career. I kind of had to reboot everything and start from scratch, which I was fine with. But I soon realized that my career with Vail was somewhat limited in terms of what I wanted to offer and what I felt I could offer. Mm-hmm. And I was hanging out with Cactus Jack outside of work, going to the ranch, and we'd go ride horses in this old kind of mock-up western town. And in between my two jobs, I saw Facebook posting to be an extra in Yellowstone, and actually in the third episode of the first season, I'm seen walking with the producer with a survey stick, and I stumble across a shallow grave. I earned about $200 that day. So the whole theme of this whole time is just trying to find my way, right?
Yeah.
So making the best of what I kind of was given. I was working another job at the gym there, and ultimately in 2018, I said, life is short. My friend Kit here in Sheridan, we had met at the NFR a couple years ago, started talking to her about coming back to Wyoming. And of all the places I'd been to in Wyoming, besides Saratoga, which I knew, I love Saratoga, my folks are there, but it's just rough year round in the winter, and especially for a social scene with, me being in my young 30s, it was not there. So I chose Sheridan, and Kit, I had applied to Weatherby because I heard they were moving here, and I'm actually good friends with Adam Weatherby. Adam and Brenda are great people, and it's awesome that they moved their company here from California. I was one of the 3,000 plus people that applied when I heard they were moving, and ultimately that didn't work out. Place and time that didn't have the right position at the time. So Kit got me a job at Bighorn Airways, actually, at the airport. She knew Aaron Traub, the HR manager up there, and they're the state's largest aviation company, which we're going to talk about aviation, and that's my main. I kind of caught the bug after being in Denver and Salt Lake. I took flight training down there.
Okay.
Very busy and very kind of difficult to do it and expensive. So anyway, I fell back on my passion for aviation, came to Sheridan, moved all my stuff up in a storage unit, started living in Airbnbs all over town, although lived in hotels on the north side of Sheridan, the Budget Inn, all those Alamo. And they're actually really great hotels. The mattresses were changed. They don't, people have that stigma about cheap hotels and everything, but, that's where I lived for many, many weeks until I was patiently looking for a house to rent.
Right.
So came to Sheridan, started at Bighorn Airways. All my stuff is in the storage locker, and just sacrificed everything again. Really, my wage and all my work experience, and I was fine with that because I was happy to be back in Wyoming. I immediately went and got my Wyoming driver's license and my plates back on my truck, and was just excited to be here and excited to be in a small community. And, more than anything, the people, it's a common theme in a lot of your podcasts, or why people do what they do. And it's because of the people around them, and especially good people, independent, hardworking, and just everyone would want to give you a shirt off your back, literally, if you were in trouble. So I missed that. And I knew that I could continue up the corporate ladder, or, I had these other opportunities, and who knows what the future holds. I'm not ruling anything out, but I just wanted to come back to Wyoming.
Yeah.
So,
how'd you get to, the last bit is, how did you get, you're at Bighorn Airways, and then how'd you get hooked up with VacuTech there?
Yeah. So, thanks for keeping me on track.
Yeah, no, you're kidding.
One day I was fueling Mr. John Tucker's plane up there at the airport, and I mentioned to him, hey, I had applied to VacuTech back when I primarily was going after Weatherby, and I applied with EMIT, VacuTech, and several other people in town. And I was fueling Mr. Tucker's plane one day, and I mentioned, hey, I've applied before. And again, the timing didn't work out. They didn't have a position available at the time. And when I met him in person, he said, well, send me your resume. And that led to a conversation with John at his office, and that led to another interview with my current manager, Steve, and another manager, Nate, who's now at Kennan. And it was unbelievable. Literally, if I hadn't, I didn't actively consciously think that if I was working at the airport, I would just, be able to meet, network, which that's a byproduct of working there. But because of working there, and John gave me an opportunity as a shipping manager at his company, it literally created the position for me, and so grateful for him and what he did. And immediately I kind of got back into what my experience could contribute to his organization, and worked as shipping manager for 18 months. And we had a great team. We still have a great team. And as of January 4th, I'm now on Steve's sales team at VacuTech, so helping customers like Letterbuck Car Wash with parts and pieces they need to help run their system.
Right.
So
that's awesome. Full circle.
Yeah, full circle. So there we go. That's kind of the background. Hopefully I kind of filled in all the gaps.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I want to go back to, we kind of just, like we just said, full circle in it. I want to go to when you just graduated undergrad, and you're kind of asking all these friends in Gillette, like, hey, I want to apply up there. And they're like, you need more experience. Talk on that a little. I think that's me being a little younger, just kind of getting out of that college, I think a lot of us hear that a lot. Oh, you get more experience. And it's like, okay, well, how do I do that?
No, absolutely. So to what your point was, after college, I knew I had friends in key positions, as in purchasing positions, and I was in sales that I was applying for. At the point, I was just in transactional sales at the branch. Say you came to the branch, you needed a motor for your unit heater in your garage. That's just $100, $200 sales there. I was applying to be a territory sales manager, to drive up to Gillette and be responsible for all the different mines and how they keep them up and running.
Yeah, and
I was told internally that I needed more experience, and because that's just a stigma out there that exists, and it's relative, and it's a place in time that I heard. I don't remember where I heard it. I think it was in school, but I just keep going back to that, and it just wasn't the place and time. One, I was immature, as I kind of told you before. And I felt I could do it, and I probably would have been able to satisfy it, but I didn't have other parts of my life together at the time.
Sure.
And I think when people hear that, they need to listen, especially to who they're being told from, and especially if it's a mentor, which I think is critical for anyone aspiring to be whatever they want to be. You need to have a mentor that has experience in that, kind of guiding you along. I think for me, I had several mentors at work. Pat McMahon knew me my entire career there. I worked for him for 3 years after my MBA. He hired me when we went through an expansion. And Randy Kopp is another huge mentor. He was the branch manager in Denver who was guiding me through this process. And so I think it's a double-edged sword at times. Say I wasn't as younger as I was at the time, and I was older, and somebody told me no, I couldn't do it. That just makes me want to do it more, you know, and that makes me want to go out and make it happen and find those resources and cut through the red tape. And you know, because of those relationships, which I think what drives the world, I think I would have been successful. But like I said, I was definitely immature, and there probably would have been times where I just wouldn't be able to manage my life, and it would have affected my work. Yeah. And because of that, you know, things happen for a reason. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. Because I think there's a lot of, you know, I think it's always that, you know, we want a result right now, you know, all the time. Like I went to school, I should have this job, where it's like, well, it's not, you know, like, and then you got to have a mentor that's like, well, that's not how it works. You know, you gotta, and like you said, it's, you might be able to do the job, satisfy the job, but what's your, you know, the 80%. Yeah.
Right. And that's why, you know, I'll just kind of summarize it here. And this is speaking for me and myself only. Back to what I said, I wouldn't change a thing about how I was raised or anything of obstacles I faced. But when, you know, it's all about people apply themselves to what they're doing, and through relationships, you know, they don't need to go put thousands and thousands of dollars in debt for a piece of paper that says I got my MBA if they don't take advantage of the opportunity. For me, I will go into that debt because I know that the relationships that I'll come away with that experience from, if that makes sense. And I still keep in touch with people today from those classes, and you might not recall the information you learn, you know, as a result of that, but you know, the relationships are what matters the most.
Totally. Yeah.
You know, especially putting yourself out there, and I highly encourage people to try things that they never tried. And if they don't like it, they don't like it, but at least they tried it. You know, don't knock it till you try it type of thing. But with limited terms. Not drugs and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is, you know, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. So. Take the risks of, you know, either it's career or take the move, you know, it's try something different. Yeah.
Or go visit a place, you know, you hear all the time, you know, I don't want to go there, or, you know, you hear those, Nebraska's advertising is perfect, you know, visit nice. Well, people think of Nebraska and they're like, oh, that's not nice or whatever. It's flat, and how can it be pretty? Well, have you ever been? You know, I still want to go to different parts of Nebraska. I've driven through Nebraska. I know it has nice places. But people just see that brand, that advertising, and they just, you know, laugh at it, whatever. But people need to go visit places to really experience them.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about that, because then, you know, you're going through that, and then personally you're going through, you know, career wise, but then, you know, there's kind of this theme of trying to find kind of that home, you know, that you're in Denver and Salt Lake, and talk a little bit about that, and kind of let's start bringing it into aviation. So you kind of went and got your license, and you're going through school, flight school and stuff in Denver. Is that where you started getting that bug?
I caught the aviation bug from my family. It's kind of in our blood. Both my grandparents were pilots. My dad's dad was in the Air Force. He was a pilot. My mom's parents were both pilots, and my grandma, actually. They had a little Cessna 182, which is a little bit more beefed up than a Cessna 172 you commonly get your license in. And my dad loved aviation as well. He wasn't a pilot, but he would expose us to different trips in Canada where we'd fly into a remote place in a de Havilland Beaver float plane, and you're dropped off there for a week, and you're totally out of touch with society, except, you know, you have to light an island on fire if you were to break an arm or something like that. So from those being exposed to that, I always wanted to be a pilot. My best friend in college earned his license on my birthday. He took me on his first time after soloing and earning his license to Laramie, where we picked up my buddy Hadley and we flew over to Saratoga over the snowy range. So my first logbook entry is actually in Embry-Riddle in Prescott, Arizona in 1999. So I was 12 years old at the time that I actually put a logbook entry in.
Okay.
And to answer your point about becoming a pilot, I'm actually not able to solo. I have a condition that it prevents me from doing so, but I have 400 and some hours logged. I know I can go take a plane around the airport and solo it, no problem. I'm not a fully licensed pilot.
Gotcha.
But I enjoy going with other people that are pilots and instructors, and taking friends is so exciting to me, or exposing people who would never get the chance to do it. And so when I came to Sheridan and I was working for Bighorn Airways, I loved what I was doing every day, even if I was making $14 an hour. I was handling planes, I was meeting pilots, mechanics,
right.
GA, general aviation pilots, just traveling across the country and stopping in Sheridan. And I love the guys that I worked with. I mean, we had a blast, and we were working outside in the whole view of the mountains. I took you up there last week, and the Bighorns are right there. I mean, you can't ask for a better office space view every day. And so, people, for me, I'm always wanting to grow and learn and advance. And at different points in my life, I feel content and I'm satisfied, but others I'm not. And some people be a line guy at Bighorn for the rest of their life and be happy, and that's great. More power to them. So for me in aviation, when I came to Sheridan, I caught the bug again, and I've immediately got involved with the Sheridan Pilots Association. So the Sheridan Pilots Association is a nonprofit that was founded in 2013 by members and pilots in the Sheridan community that wanted to give back to aviation and expose others and young people to aviation, take kids flying and whatnot, host open houses, host air shows. In the past, they've had C-130s come in and military helicopters, and then feature all the locals' planes and whatnot. So after I left Bighorn, I continued to do that, and I knew immediately that after John extended the opportunity to work at VacuTech, that was my main source of supporting my hobby, because aviation is, that has a stigma out there that it is expensive, and no doubt everything from maintenance to even owning a plane is very expensive. I compare it to any hobby. You can have a chipped out turbo, latest greatest truck and a huge enclosed trailer and 6 snowmobiles that are turboed, and you can have the same money you can have in a plane or less. You can even go out there and get a plane for $15,000-$20,000, and you can share the cost, and that it's kind of that Uber concept that you can decrease the cost and improve access. So that is our core theme at the Sheridan Pilots Association, is improving access to aviation and making it less expensive for people. So once I became involved, and I did we'll talk about the survey I did last last winter and everything. I became the vice president voted in after a couple years of involvement and whatnot.
Right.
So
I just want to take a step back. I didn't even know the association was started in 2013. I'm from here, and I've been here pretty much for a while, and I'm like, what? It was here in 2013? Like that's so no, that's good. I mean, it's been around, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like that's probably going to surprise a lot of people. Like, oh, I didn't know it's been around.
It is. And you can go to SheridanPilots307.com and kind of see a real short excerpt. But luckily, I've been able to have a lot of friends and people around that really supported the effort, from instructors, just the whole community. So just on a very high level, we've recently invested a lot of marketing expense to getting the name out there, from radio ads on Bighorn Mountain Radio to Sheridan Media to the newspaper and the press to the Country Bounty to flyers around town to word of mouth. We're actually reading a really interesting book at work right now called Friction, and it talks about removing friction and how powerful word of mouth marketing it is, and it's made a major impact. So yes, even though it was created 8 years ago and you haven't heard of it, we're working on making it more known. I'd like to plan an open house this fall where we just have the public up, with coming after the effects of the pandemic and making sure everyone's safe there. we hope to have something fun planned this fall.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about, the why, why, I mean,
Sure.
Outside of, you're working there and you saw the view and you've had kind of an early appreciation for aviation, but like what's driving you to get the general aviation crowd going here in Sheridan?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, aviation is freedom. If I were to take you this week, we could take off and we could, on a tank of gas, we could go within 4 hours radius flight time of Sheridan Airport, and you could visit any airport you wanted, and you could, we're privileged to have the SkyWest air service into Sheridan that connects you to Denver, to connects you to thousands world international destinations through United's network. But general aviation, if you were to get your license, my brother-in-law is almost going to get his so we can go fly all the time together. It just opens up freedom and allows you to save time, instead of driving on a beautiful, we call it visual flight rules or VFR, on a clear and visibility unlimited day like today, the sky's the limit. And say that you want to go host a podcast down in, let's say, a really small airport like Pinedale or Rawlins, Wyoming, or somewhere that there's not commercial service, you could do that at your fingertips and save hours of time, and you could pack up all your equipment in the plane and go have a conversation with somebody. It's truly amazing what aviation does in our daily lives that sometimes is taken for granted. There's doctors that have their licenses. There's people that are flight for lighted out of Sheridan because we have a runway. If we didn't have a runway, and even Buffalo has a runway. There's cargo that comes in out of there. I've gotten the privilege to fly with the Richland Aviation. They have a twin that comes down from Billings every morning and brings all the Amazon next day air packages to Sheridan, and then Jockton sits around till 6 o'clock and then flies back the next day airmail leaving Sheridan.
Yeah,
and then it'd be fun. I could send you up there with one day with him sitting right seat. You can actually sneak up there for a commercial flight if you want.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, but again, through relationships and whatever. So Jockton, he's been, building hours flying for cargo. And you come into Billings and you see this giant Airbus mothership that comes from Knoxville, Tennessee or Louisville, and all the ground carriers and all the planes flying all over over Montana and northern Wyoming, bringing all the mail. They sort it all overnight and load it into the mothership, and then logistically just keeps the world running. That's just one small example. So, military, medical, and it boils down. And back to what we were talking about, general aviation, what drives me is exposing people to that and having them be able to follow their passion, similar to mine. If a kid's out there that really wants to learn to fly and is facing barriers, trying to remove those barriers, removing that red tape, or someone that's in a position, so maybe aviation's not my thing, maybe I don't like heights or I get sick or whatever, but maybe I can get over that and I can go fly with somebody who can be a pilot,
Yep.
is what drives my thing. And I was thinking of ideas driving over here this morning to meet with you was maybe it'd be cool to run a TV ad that says, hey, if you want to go on a discovery flight, call this number and you're routed to your local airport where people can go take you on a discovery flight. Just trying to think of ways to grow and further it. But it does takes investment and sacrifice and time just to follow your passion. So.
Well, and like you said, every hobby and something that you want to do. I mean, you could, like you said, with like snowmobiling, you can have you can have like 5-6 snowmobiles and a trailer, and and
you can only use it 6 months of the year, but but that's fun. I love snowmobiling. I do. I had an old one. I bought a used one this year that I had. Hadn't had my first sled for so long, or one of a great sled to keep up with everybody in the deep powders. So, I had a 99 Trail 550 that my dad got my sisters and I in Christmas in the early 2000s. The thing was awesome. It was super light, but all my friends were getting the latest, greatest. But I learned how to ride, and again, time and a place for everything to compare it to. So.
Yeah, and that's a good segue. I do want to ask you about, you were having these I don't know if it was you were having these thoughts personally, but you had this sense of, working in Denver, go to Salt Lake, but you're having this thought of, man, I'm just not, I'm just not home. Right. Talk about that, and then you get called up like, oh, come up to Sheridan or just come back to Wyoming. You know what? What were some of those things calling you back to?
Right. And I'd say when you say that, the biggest thing for me is happiness. And if anyone's familiar with the book Into the Wild, where the main character kind of rejects society and felt it's just a heartbreaking book of, at the end it says that true happiness is shared with others. And whether that's a friend, a family member, a significant other, for me, I just wasn't happy. In Denver, after they I actually worked for Uber for a couple weeks in my F-150. I started on 420, and I didn't even think consciously about it, but I gave a bunch of, potheads rides to go get weed at dispensaries and stuff like that. And it was just there's people that benefit for it. I'm not going to, we're not talking politics here or whatever. I've tried it in college and it wasn't for me. And, so anyway, back to my point, worked for Uber, and I just realized, this is not what I want to do. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And, I just knew that, people always go full circle, it seems like. I just wanted to get back to Wyoming.
Yeah.
And feel more comfortable, where I was. There's songs about it. I think of Eli Youngband. I think he has a song about, not, being rejected, about, not feel like fitting in and all that. And I like back to high school when I was a fish out of water and I didn't even know what music was really, or, I try to connect with people on common themes. I think, Chris Ledoux, one of my favorites, he in Cowboy's Hat, he has that last lyric that's like, he always thinks people would have a lot in common if they just sit down and talk things out, and which is exactly what you're doing here, which is so cool. I just think if people would there's a lot of love to be had in the world. I just had kind of a big heart, and I just hate to see when people can't get along.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And that's interesting, kind of that was the moment of you're, and not, because I don't want to get into that ball of worms there, but
you can if you want. I like ball.
Well, just that's people need to, be reflective of like, man, I'm not happy. Like, this is just, know, and whatever it is, but it's just, and that's okay. I think that's the thing is like, that's okay. Like for, and, just say like, I'm not happy here. Like I want to change. And, that's kind of your story of like, nope, I'm going to go to Salt Lake and then, come back to Aspen, and then same thing, kind of like, that's, and then I didn't know you're technically an actor, I didn't know that being on the Yellowstone. That's funny. But I was just kind of curious about that. And then, is that, you kind of told the story about, when you were, in Laramie, following kind of, in the socialite, and kind of that, the story of kind of falling on your face, pretty much literally.
Dropping girls swing dancing, it wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bad. And friendships and relationships were affected because of it.
Sure. Is that, was that the moment that you were like, wow, like I need to.
When I fell on my chin and got the scar to see her, that was a real big eye opener.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, again,
and that was my own decision too, by the way. It wasn't, I'm not throwing any of my friends under the bus or my family. That was me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
That you just look yourself in the mirror, and, we laughed about it. We still laugh about it to this day, but, I decided to line up 7 shots of Crown Royal when my friends had said, no, JT, we're good. We don't need that. And I thought I was, stronger than anything and could handle anything. And
right.
I didn't, obviously.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, a theme for us is, ownership, like you just you just did it right again. Like that was my decision. That was, and again, that's, just kind of like the, I'm not happy. I was like, just take ownership. That's okay. Like that's, that's what happens. It's, so anyways, I wanted to kind of touch back on that, but, well, let's, in regards to, being back home, being back in Wyoming, you've kind of hit on it already. Happiness is shared with other people.
Right.
Your sisters moved up here. You guys are very close. But what else about maybe, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Sheridan, but just the people here. And then actually, I do want to ask you about this. What makes Sheridan County Airport? I think this will help a lot of people here. Like I just said, I didn't know the association was here in 2013.
Right.
But what are some other cool things about the Sheridan County Airport that people may not know?
Sure. So the first example is, we've had air service here in the past before I moved here in Great Lakes. Then we had Denver Air Connection. We just came off a year of a global pandemic, COVID-19. This cancel culture that continues to manifest itself, which I don't believe in canceling anything, maybe postponing things right back to right place, right time. All I would say is we have an unbelievable way to travel right in our backyard. And yes, it may be expensive, and maybe you find a better flight out of Billings or Casper or Rapid City, whatever. But to your question about Sheridan County Airport, my friend John Stopka, he's been the airport manager up there for 40 plus years. It's incredible. He's actually the only airport in the state that we don't have an airport board. He works for the
commissioners.
County commissioners.
County commissioners, yeah.
And there's a lot of work behind the scenes that has SkyWest in our town to be able to jump on a plane and go to Denver and then either visit friends in Denver or go anywhere you want to go, even on a different airline. And that's remarkable for a town like Sheridan. And my friend Hadley, he's hilarious, down in Saratoga, like 4th generation rancher. He went to Germany in high school and had his passport. And for so long, he just let his passport expire and never go anywhere. And so we're coming off this pandemic, and he does have his passport back by now because I want to go fishing in Canada or do something fun.
Yep.
But I recommend people travel. I had the chance to, during high school and college, study abroad, and I turned it down actually because I missed home, I missed Wyoming, I missed the West. But now that I'm getting a little bit wiser in the years, getting older, I'm still learning, and I want to go travel. I want to see the world. I want to see different parts of North America still, South America. And so that's the first thing that I would say is most unique about Sheridan Airport. The second thing is with the Pilots Association. And so I'll go back to what we talked about, and I showed you around the airport real quick last week. The Sheridan Pilots Association is a nonprofit at the airport that we want to expose and help people, access our sport. So we have a simulator room at the airport where for kids 15 younger and free, we can get them on a flight simulator. The kids grew up with Microsoft Flight Simulator, whatnot. So we can do that with the yoke and pedals and throttles, controls and whatnot. And then we have a separate, totally FAA, Federal Aviation Administration approved sim that pilots can log time on and practice real-time training if there's bad weather outside, and you can simulate an engine failure and snow and rain on the sim. So we have that right at the airport. And so not a lot of airports have that ability. So contact the association today to, schedule time to go see it. And because of all that raised interest and wanting to desire a flight training at last winter over 2019 into 2020, right before COVID hit in March, that interest spurred actual flight instruction. And so Sheridan Pilots 307 LLC was created as a result of that interest. And so I saw a need to have that. And with working with another local pilot, Tammy Bellis, she's just our treasurer for the association. She owned this plane to go visit her daughter up in Bozeman at MSU. And she wasn't using it as much as she wanted to. And so we ended up working out a deal, and we put the plane in a flight school. And I just sent out our newsletter for the winter quarter, and it just passed 500 hours since last May. So we have that ability. So you can call us today, and you can go on a discovery flight for $95 as well. And, I want to say during this whole point, our whole conversation, that Bighorn Airways also has the same service available at the airport as well. So there's two options to go pursue flying, or just to go check it out and see what you think of it. So
no, that's awesome. That's exactly what I was kind of looking for there is, it's from being here, it's a wonderful thing to hear, like, man, just the opportunities that are provided from nonprofits and Bighorn Airways, and I think I told you last week, I was like, I didn't know Bighorn Airways was one of the larger, commercial, fleets, in the state.
Yeah, it's incredible. Check out their website. I think it's bighornairways.com.
Yeah.
And it's a great story that the owner Bob is and his son Chris have put together over the years. So really cool company. And the other thing I'll say back to travel is, I highly recommend people just get out and not only just taking most of their experience, but just experience things.
Yep.
And if people haven't traveled, which I was going to say is, they haven't left Sheridan County or northern Wyoming in a while. I think it benefits people to go, see new places.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you were talking about that, I was going to mention, my wife Lexi took a trip to Florida, and she'll fly in tonight. So it's like, I don't have to drive to Billings or Denver to go pick her up. She doesn't have to drive. It's all, and then we're just right off Zuni. So
nice.
People were joking with me. They're like, you could just make her walk. And I was like, no, but,
and to add on what I was going to say, cause I keep thinking of things, you need to go travel and get out and see things to realize what you have back at home. That's what I wanted to say full circle, because there's, for me, traveling and living in 4 different states and 18 addresses during all that time, and I'm sure there's many other people out there that have done this, you just, whether it's traffic or just other stressors in life, that you just simplify and kind of, get back to a low pulse, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I can have a tough day at work, which I try not to, but at the end of the day, we're in Wyoming, we're in everything that you stand for as a podcast company, and we're in a great place to live. And so people need to realize that every day they wake up, I think, and make the most of it. And
I do agree. I think travel, you've got to go see the world, because then, like you said, when you come back, you're like, oh man, I love California. Right. I love the beach, but man, like the last time I was in LA, the traffic, I'm just like, I cannot. I was like, if I lived here, I would hate it. And it's like, it's not even that bad. Like the last time we were there, but I'm just like, I can't handle. Like,
no, absolutely. My mom's actually from Newport Beach, believe it or not.
Oh, I love Newport. Yeah. See, my
dad was the only guy wearing a pearl snap shirt in there
when
they met back so that's a great story. So we go visit her high school friends every August, and it's a blast. It's an absolute blast to visit and go, but to go to the beach, and we just rent a beach house, and we don't have to deal with traffic. She grew up deep sea fishing every weekend.
Oh wow!
But we go to this little bar. If anyone's listening and they're in Southern California, go to this bar called Blackie's, and that's where they met. And it's a real dive bar. It's like the Mint Bar, but on the boardwalk of Southern California. Yeah. It's awesome.
And he was wearing a pearl snap.
Yeah. He had the house up by Livermore, Colorado, up there, and he was trying to meet someone like I am now, and thinking that he followed what he wanted, and they hit it off, and Mom decided to head for Colorado. So
he took her to Saratoga, and that's awesome.
Well, to northern Colorado, and then they end up into the cabin and
that's
stuff.
Funny.
And my mom's amazing. She's one of my best friends, and she's been there through thick and thin with me, and always been a solid rock. And same with my dad too. Luckily, they've both been married over 35 years.
Wow.
And I just saw my grandma the other day. She's 96, still going strong. Wow. Down in, she's living in Louisville, Colorado, in a home. But she came outside and said, "I'm over this mask deal. I want to see my grandson." And we got to hang out outside and talk. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, and that's it. Funny you just mentioned that. So my parents are both. Well, my dad's from Buffalo.
Okay.
And went to school at UW, and then my mom was adopted, but the family that adopted her were in Buffalo.
No kidding.
And so, and then they both ended up in San Francisco, of all things. And so, there's kind of that whole, like, you got to get out and, go experience the world. And then, then they're back here. But, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, that California, Wyoming connection. But, that was good. I think some people, pandemic aside, but I think I'm curious to see how aviation goes, because I think you're right. I think people are more interested in, how do we share a small plane for us to, go to Bozeman or go to Denver or go to Laramie, to go watch UW play or whatever. And I think COVID, maybe put that in hyperdrive, because I think, and maybe not, maybe I'm just thinking just out loud, but, we are blessed to have that SkyWest, it's a great connection, but, do you guys see that interest if people want to have control of their, I guess their flights, their itineraries? Is that kind of the interest you guys are seeing?
Well, to your point about the potential rise in GA, we definitely saw an increase in the aviation. Two of our students purchased their own planes recently. That's highly unusual for even a younger generation. Normally, you have a flying club to try to improve access, but I have two students that are soon to be fully licensed pilots that they're going to have their own plane and total freedom to do what they want.
Wow.
And I actually I was signed up for a really interesting webinar from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce last week, and the CEO of United Airlines was on there, and he was alluding to the fact that at the pinnacle of COVID, their traffic dropped 95%. And you just think about that for a minute. These massive, airline companies are, they're burning cash like crazy. They're just in complete survival mode. And now it's up to 42% of what it was pre-COVID levels. So, and they're forecasting this to be affecting them 3 to 4 years out to kind of come back to full pre-COVID strength. So, out of that, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of pilots, were forced to retire when they were that was on the radar, take severance packages.
Right.
And believe it or not, there's only like 660,000 licensed pilots in the United States of America. So you think about the contiguous states, you think of Alaska and Hawaii, that's less than 1% of the population.
Wow.
And so it'll be, to your point, really fascinating to see, what the future holds. There's, electric eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing, drones and small passenger planes that are autonomous, that people aren't inside or they're flying themselves, technology coming out. I still think that's a long ways out, but we will see it in our generation because of just the cost of it initially. But right now, I mean, just to have a small little Cessna 172 and zip over to, Hewlett or go look at Devil's Tower or something, that's, people are really considering that. So I think we're going into the busy season. As I said, we just passed 500 hours, and I have to get a new engine in the 172. We just found one through a company out of a tornado wrecked 172 in Nashville that we're going to use as getting overhauled in Minneapolis right now to be our second engine. And so we're going to do that swap, and I think the plane's going to be nonstop this summer. So I'm excited to see what the future holds, no doubt.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I was just, so 95%, and then they're only at about not even 45% right now.
Right.
That's crazy. Freedom's a big, having that independence to go do that is pretty cool. And then,
not just passenger traffic, but, cargo has seen a huge increase, just for the online shopping. E-commerce is massive. We all know about Amazon. We all try to support local. And that's another great thing about Sheridan's community is, I try to always accomplish my Christmas list on Main Street every year. And that's different. That's really cool. But behind the scenes, you think of all the logistics to get things that we use in our daily lives, and aviation plays a major part of that. And, you can get your license and you can go firefight. You can go into the military. You don't have to go be a commercial pilot to fly passengers around if that's not your thing. So there's a lot of different avenues that aviation can take you. And, I highly recommend that. Something I'd like to do is look at your drone license. A lot of people have them to in survey work that they don't impact the ground, or take a four-wheeler to, the future of pest spraying in agriculture and whatnot is looking to be, using drones. And so it'll identify what that thistle is in the middle of your hay and specifically spray that patch and totally remoteless. And, I've always wanted to shoot a drone out of the air with a shotgun if I'm camping or somewhere, but, they have some really critical uses going forward. I don't know about, aerial package delivery in Sheridan. I think that'll be one of the last places to do that. But anyway,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying there.
Yeah,
so
that was awesome. No, that was great. Well, I think we're getting close on some time here, but I do want to ask you a question because I think we've hit on some really good themes on kind of your, I don't want to call you old, your beginning of your life it really fits into like Go Be Wyoming and GoBeWYO. What does that mean to you, especially kind of coming full circle, northern Colorado, Saratoga, and then kind of ending back up in northern Wyoming? What's that? What does Wyoming mean to you, or GoBeWYO? What's that kind of mean to you when you hear that?
What it means to me is independence. First and foremost, I believe strongly in someone managing their own life and doing what they want, pursuing happiness. That's a God-given right, and that's what America was founded on. I think it's something that this country needs to get back to, and I think Wyoming exemplifies that more than any state in the union. I think that the people that are born and raised here, whether they're on a ranch or they're in town doing something, they know how to work hard. Their parents teach them that. I said earlier that I would never change anything that how I was born or raised, but I definitely learned how to work hard, and I think a hard work ethic will transpire through any obstacle, no matter what you do. And I think that people follow their passion here, and you can be a rancher, you can be a farmer, you can be an attorney, a doctor. You can be whatever you want to be and live in a great state like Wyoming. Yeah. And I think Go Be Wyoming is something that you have to stick true and stay true to those principles wherever you go, and always help people out when they're in need, and give people the shirt off your back, literally. Yep. And I think have fun too. I think back to our conversation about happiness, you got to enjoy life, every day. If you don't enjoy it, then you need to take a look in the mirror and write down, like, what do you enjoy? Because this life is short. I mean, we're not even going to go to that can of worms, but we live in a whole, like, we're trying to land on Mars and all that down the road and talk about, that's just mind blowing. But here we are in this little earth, and we're in the state of Wyoming. And in a sense, we are sheltered from a lot of things going on, COVID. People are walking around like nothing happened, and that's has had its positives and its negatives. But I mean, unless you go to the grocery store or went to a restaurant trying to support them to keep the doors open, you didn't know what was going on, literally. So, Wyoming is a very special place, and has a special place in my heart, and I hope to give back to it a lot that it's given me. So. Yeah,
I love that. That was great, and I don't really have anything else to add. That was wonderful. That was well said. And if anyone listening hasn't yet, go check out the Sheridan Pilots Association. Check out Sheridan Pilots 307. They're kind of one and the same. Call them up, though. I mean, JT, you've mentioned it multiple times to us and the team. Like, let's get you on a discovery flight. Let's get in there. Let's get up there in the air, and then also call them up for the simulator. I got on the, I don't know what that first one was. I crashed on the first one, but that Redbird is way cool. The official, the FAA one. Like you said, it's anybody under 15 is free, and then
and I always take them over to the other one, just to expose them. We're just excited to have people in interest. We're celebrating our 1-year anniversary. We literally started on April Fool's Day a year ago. And parents actually loved it. It was something their kids could do, and get outside. And I think kids should be in school and be learning and be social too. So. Anyway, again, thank you for having me on today, and I look forward to meeting up again, and we'll get you airborne as well.
Love it. Well, thanks, JT. It was great hearing your story, and thanks for everyone listening. That was another episode of GoBeWYO.